Hi everybody, welcome to today's Coffee Club interview, which is with Stephen Vaughan, one of our BCAT captains, well known to people. Hi Stephen, thanks for joining us today.
Hi Dale, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Indeed. So let's get the show on the road. And the first standard question we always ask is if you're out on the road on your bike and you stop at the cafe, as all cyclists must do, what would be your coffee of choice when you get to the counter?
I'm a bit boring when it comes to kind of like coffee when I'm out, and it's just kind of going to be an Americano, or if I'm feeling a bit adventurous, it might be a flat white. I'd rather kind of spend my money and get my bad calories in through having cake alongside it, if I'm honest.
Can't argue with cake, there's no doubt about that. So, well, that's got us off and running. So, next question that we always come to is what got you into cycling, first of all, and then what actually brought you into level?
So I've been cycling for, most of my life. And then I'm a triathlete, kind of don't sort of, spit and swear. I appreciate, as pure cyclists that, I'm one of those people. I'm not good enough to be at anything, but I'm all right when you put all three together. So, I kind of like, as I got more competitive as a triathlete, and I've kind of like, been in love and not in love with kind of like sport, around careers and kind of family and stuff. And it's kind of, but as I've kind of got older and like being able to train more, I've kind of got more and more sort of focused on around performance. So performance became a bit more kind of important to me in terms of kind of like why I was doing it. And I didn't really I didn't really go online cycling until COVID. I'm a kind of COVID Zwifter. And I started then, and during COVID or at the end of COVID, is my local cycle club had a Zwift team, so I used to ride with them, and then that kind of gradually petered out over the next couple of years. So I was riding for another team, and it just wasn't very competitive, basically. And I kind of like I hadn't fallen out with them, but I'd sort of fallen out with, like, sitting on the front for the entire TTT and kind of like not really, dropping people off the back, and I was still, and I'm not really anyone who's ridden with me will know I'm not that powerful. And I'm kind of like, so I'm tapping out a nice tempo and I'm dropping people in the team, and it's like, this is not the competition. So instead I joined level and had, get my head kicked in every week by racing with people who are putting out, an extra watt per kilo over me. So that's kind of, so we kind of like, I think we sort of bumped into each other via the sort of social media advertising, like, was it last year 24?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Sort of this time last year, I think. Yeah. So that's kind of how it all sort of came about, I suppose.
If I remember rightly, I'm pretty sure it was you. You came in as a CCAT rider, and never raced for CCATs. You got upgraded to B and went straight through to B before before we ever raced together at all. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I'd kind of not really raced in the kind of pre-Christmas bit. So, and at the time they were being, I don't know whether they still are, but it's like really strict to like kicking you back down the levels really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I'd been downgraded to C. Then I did a couple of I thought, if I'm gonna, having kind of like moaned about my previous team, I ought to kind of like do a couple of races in advance. So did a couple of races in advance and got myself upgraded.
And it was bye. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
And there you go. And you've become a key part of the BCAT team organisation now. So and you've been moonlighting with the mercenaries in the morning as well. So yeah.
Well, that all worked out really nicely, didn't it? Because it's kind of like, I had basically 8 riders, so it's like, I'll tell you what, I'm working at home at the moment, so I'll ride in the morning, and and the guys can all get a ride in the afternoon.
Yeah, all worked out well. Okay, then, so moving on, the next one we come to is tell us about a bucket list item that you've achieved.
I found this quite difficult. I've been quite lucky in terms of sort of some stuff that we've done, because we've traveled quite a lot. So I've like climbed Kilimanjaro, and kind of like we summited at like as the sun broke over the horizon, like literally kind of watched the sunrise over Africa. So that was quite stunning. We've trekked in the Himalayas. I've done stuff like I've ridden like Land's End to John O'Groats, and kind of like racing wise, kind of like Challenge Roth. I've sort of done, which is kind of like one of the iconic. It's not an Ironman brand, but I would say it's kind of like more iconic than most of the Ironman brand sort of Ironman distance races. So I've done Challenge Roth. So it's kind of like I've done all of these things which are really, really great. It's kind of like, but then it came to what's the bucket list thing that I've done is I bought a camper van.
I can understand that. I've always wanted to do that and I never have. I think Nick O'Connell told me once he'd actually managed to have one and sell it as well. So,
Oh no.
Yeah.
Once you've got no, it's like what? How do I make it big? How do I get a bigger one now? It's kind of I don't want a mobile like a caravan on wheels. It's like a VW transporter. It's kind of like it's that sort. But I quite like maybe getting the one next size up so that it's got like a bike garage inside and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a good one. That's quite an impressive sized bucket you've got there as well. So, what's the bucket list item you've yet to achieve?
Well, yeah, I'd love to do Race Across America, probably as a team, not on my own. But the missus is never going to sanction that. So I kind of like concluded that the bucket list item that is like if you just think about stretch goals, it's like it's in reach but probably difficult would be to go and get some time to go to South America. I think that's a kind of bucket list, spend time, but I don't want to go just for a few weeks. It needs to be a couple of months.
That's
probably to go and do it properly. That's the sort of maybe that's the sort of, well, my friends would argue I've already kind of like pretty much retired, but when I do properly retire, maybe that's the kind of like the first one, because I know I've got a baby face, but I'm only 5 years off.
It's I'm not going to tell you my age. I'm lucky I've got a babyish face, but I'm going to keep it quiet for now. Just don't go and look at Zwift Power, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, so moving on from buckets then, if you were to set up a dinner party, which 3 guests would you invite to it?
It's really difficult. I kind of like been interested. It's been interesting to kind of like hear other people kind of, talk about their guests and whatever. And I had this thing about, are these people who are alive or people who are dead?
Oh, yeah, they can be both.
And it's like, but then there's just so much that I quite like to do, and I kind of, and then I sort of thought, well, actually, if I was being entirely honest, I'm a bit of a food snob, or can be a bit of a food snob. And I'd probably rather kind of like me and my other half just kind of go and get a Michelin star dinner somewhere and like have a proper food party rather than invite a load of people around and spend money on them. But to answer the question, I came up with a few different lists. So so I'm a sports psychologist, and kind of like I'd be fascinated to like have a dinner party with like the founding fathers, if you like, of sort of psychological theories. So like get Sigmund Freud and Carl Rogers and Aaron Beck in a room for dinner, kind of like talking about their different approaches to psychology. Might be quite a good thing to do. I'm really into the outdoors, so kind of like how might I kind of like be really interesting to kind of like talk to people like Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, these kind of like pioneers, and maybe sort of get Scott or something like someone like that. So it's like something about all these adventurers in a room and kind of like find out about them. But then kind of like I've got to bring it back to kind of like being real, kind of like how am I going to have this dinner party? Who's going to come? Who can I invite now? I decided that they must be alive. So I went for kind of like the goat of cycling, which would be Marianne Vos. She continues to astound and perform. It's just phenomenal. So I'd have her from representing my sporting life. In terms of like trying to be kind of like, am I a bit intellectual, or am I, I was like, oh, should I get a philosopher? Who's a modern philosopher or something like that? And I was like, nah, can't do that. But then I was like, actually, there's sort of, it's like, is the Dalai Lama a bit too political? In a kind of like non-political way, if that makes sense. And then so I plumped for kind of a political choice around Barack Obama, because I think kind of like what he did through his in terms of the presidency, and kind of like how he kind of like some of the dignity and stuff that he kind of like coped with at the end, and kind of like the fascination. So I went for Barack Obama, and then my third choice would be I'm a bit of a Star Wars geek, so it would have to be one of the original cast. I'm not quite old enough. I wasn't quite old enough to see the very first one when it came out in, was it 77? But I went to see The Empire Strikes Back when I was 80, in 1980, not when I was 80, in 1980. So probably it would be, it would have been the guy who played Chewbacca, but he's passed away, unfortunately. So I'd go for Mark Hamill, I think, the original Luke Skywalker. That would be my three: Barack Obama, Marianne Vos, and Mark Hamill.
Sounds like a lively exchange that would be taking place there. So good stuff, good one, good choices. So moving on again, our next regular question is: if you were stuck in the Watopian desert, what 3 items would you take with you in your rucksack?
So I started off thinking I was going to be a bit of a smart ass, and I thought, I'll get one of Elon Musk's Starlink links. I'll take my watt bike and my phone, and then I could carry on Zwifting.
Perfect.
Good. And then of course I realised that I wouldn't have any electricity, so that idea was kind of
Oh, if you took a Tax Neo bike, you'd be able to generate your own electricity.
True, there is that.
Yeah.
There is that. And other brands are available, of course. So in the end, I kind of like thought about it, and it's like, right, so I've got to have something to occupy myself, because I do get bored easily. I do have a habit of kind of getting bored easily. So I probably would just take my bike, if I'm honest. I might change the Dai-2 to manual, so that I know it's going to keep working. And then I'd probably take a hat, because I just end up, I've got a rosy red face now because I've just been out on my bike for a couple of hours and it's bloody freezing. But my face goes this color in the sun as well. So I'd need to take a hat to kind of like keep myself from frying. And then I guess being sensible, especially if I'm going to ride my bike, and I'm assuming it's hot in the desert because it's hot, either, some water. I couldn't decide whether would I take water or would I take water diviners, so that I kind of like can find water wherever I am. So those would be my 3 things for the desert. And if I could have 4, I'd take some books to read as well.
Some books. That's a perfectly valid choice. You could always, as I've pointed out to other people, you could cycle into the Oasis. There's loads of water in there. Don't know where it comes from, but.
But and then you kind of like, if you think about what is in the Watopian desert, is that actually there is there's the cowboy town, and then there's whatever called Springs as well. So actually we could kind of like take a luxury spa and go to the bar. So maybe we're overthinking this.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, my choice at the end, my third choice was a train ticket, because you always see that train that disappears through. So I said I was going to be on the station by that tunnel, and that was the way I got out of the desert. So yeah, good choices. Okay, so coming on to the more quickfire questions, what's your favourite city in the world?
I'm not sure I've really got a favourite city. I mean, because they all kind of like have their own like unique characteristics, don't they? So it's kind of like, if you kind of go to the Asian subcontinent, it's like, so, go to the Indian cities or go to like Kathmandu or somewhere. It's like, it's just got that hustle and bustle and complete madness going on all the time. Mm-hmm. There's sort of the same in kind of like, if you go to sort of like, I think Ho Chi Minh City, I thought was quite cool when I went there. It's like, but again, it's just mad. It's just hustly and bustly, but it's these are 24-hour towns, but then you can kind of contrast those to American cities or whatever, where there's a little bit of each one has its own kind of signature in terms of what makes them different. And so I was like, I don't know which one would be my favorite. And then I was like, actually none of them are my favorite, because actually I'd rather be out in the countryside,
mm-hmm.
doing something else. So it's kind of, that would be the thing, would be to try and avoid the city. You know,
Yeah.
it's used the city to kind of like as a means to an end, but it's transitional.
Yeah,
Uh,
makes sense. I can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, makes perfectly valid answer. So in that case, if we can't get you on a city, where's somewhere you visited that you feel you must go back to someday?
well, there's a few, and I've been lucky in that it's kind of um, I've been to Nepal twice already. Catherine and I went ourselves and sort of trekked the Annapurna circuit and went into sort of this place called into the province of Mustang, and then took my dad for his 70th birthday to Everest Base Camp. So as a trek. So I've kind of like lucky I've been twice, but I think if I kind of like, it's a toss up between going back to Nepal again or going back to Africa to go on safari. Serengeti was really cool, and there's so many kind of different things that you can see. We claim we saw the big five, but if we're entirely honest, the rhinos, they were dots in the horizon.
Yeah.
The guide's pointing them out and he's got his binoculars and we're going, where are they? Are you sure? And he's there. It's like, hey, yeah, okay. Well, yeah, we'll put it down as we've seen the big five. But I think I'd like to kind of go back and go back on safari as well. So I've kind of given you two because I can't quite decide between
Yeah,
them.
no, that's fine. Big choices there, good ones. The base camp one sounds like it must have been a good experience as well, I guess. So yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Okay. Something slightly more mundane than the last choices you gave us is if you were out to dinner, what would you choose off the menu?
I'm kind of a I, I kind of like a flip and flop between a couple of things, but it's kind of like my go-to is kind of I love a good steak, but then I love good spicy food as well. So fundamentally, if it's good spicy food looking on the menu, I'm going to pick that.
Mhm.
But
I'm with
otherwise,
you. I'm with you on that.
if I'm unsure, I'm going for a steak.
Yeah.
But if we're in a country where the menu's in the local language and I don't know what it is, I will pick food at random,
Hmm.
which can have some interesting consequences.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can square that. I've done that in the past. Yeah, so yeah, it's okay as long as you're open, or no one tells you what you shouldn't be eating.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, that's good.
absolutely.
Yeah, there's quite a few people who opt for steak on here as one of their choices, and I almost never eat it. So there must be something clearly wrong with me.
I
It's
think I
probably
only
why
eat
I
it
get.
out.
Yeah,
I only eat it when I'm out. We never cook
yeah.
it at home.
No,
So
no.
it's one of those things. Yeah, it's got to be good steak though.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
And okay, and what will be your drink of choice to go with dinner?
well, if it's curry, it's got to be a beer, and if it's kind of like steak, then it's going to be a nice red wine.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think.
Both, yeah, both of those make sense. Yeah. So, okay, good stuff. So moving on from food and drink, what's your favourite course on Zwift?
What's my favorite course on Swift? Do you know I just like flat ones? So
Yeah.
I mean, actually, I do quite like the courses in France, but I'll just repeatedly go back to Fuego Flats, and just because I think maybe it's because I sort of, even though I race and I use Zwift, I kind of like, I'm not quite as hardcore about some of you guys who will be watching this. um, in, in terms of it, it's kind of like, I might race once or twice a week in the winter, but fundamentally, I'm a cancel my subscription in the summer person,
Hmm.
because I don't use it. If I want to ride indoors, it's a Watt bike. I'll just ride on the Watt bike app, and it'll
Yeah.
just be all. Um, but largely, as soon as the weather's warm enough, I'm in my shorts and I'm outside. So, all the time. So it is really, for me, it's about, it's about trying to kind of like put down an effort and, and whatever. And so, yeah, it always comes back to Fuego Flats. And that's where I had my best results. I got in the Cycling Weekly top 10, in the weekly club 10 once. I squeezed in at number 10. What was that, number 9?
Good stuff. Well, 9 or 10 would be good. 9 would be better, but 10 isn't too shabby, I think you'll find. So,
No,
unless you're telling me only 11 people entered, of course.
I'm not sure how many were in it, actually.
Oh, well done. 12? That's good.
13, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so next question then. Who's the most famous person that you've met?
The most famous person that I've met? I've not really met many hugely famous people, if I'm entirely honest. I did go to a charity dinner once and met Shirley Bassey, but that's kind of like, there'll be many people watching this who are going, who?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I was quite, I was relatively young, like, but I did know who she was. So I've met her. I think I met Chris Froome, said hello to him, as he went past.
Yeah.
I can't say
wave?
Oh, he waved to me. He waved to me this. In fact, it's a repeat. He waved to me at the end of this summer when we were on holiday. We were down, staying just outside Monaco, and I was going that way. He was going this way, and he waved as he went past. I was like, never too pro to wave. I mean, did
you hear him say that? That's Stephen Vaughan.
Yeah, he went, oh, Steve, I remember you. I shook your hand about 5 years ago. So, I kind of, I haven't really met many famous people. It's not really been my thing. I'm kind of like a little bit, I'd be a little bit, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Chris Froome's good enough. We'll certainly accept that. Sort of heading towards the end of the chat now. What's the first car you owned then?
It was an orange Mini. Its registration was A656 RWC. The Mini Sprite.
Yeah.
900 and is it 98 cc? But yeah, I love that car.
Strange how so many of us remember the registration plate of our first car. I can as well. I can't remember any of the ones in between. But the first one,
for my own now.
But the first one, it's never left me. God, that was a long time ago now. And it was orange, you said.
Orange, yeah.
So you were very visible.
Very visible.
And
so, thinking to the next question.
Well, that links to the next question. What's your favourite colour? Are you going to say
orange?
Orange, yes. There's a guy in my road club I must introduce you to. He's the same. Orange bike, orange kit, the whole thing. Are you the same?
I don't have orange kit. I have an orange helmet.
Yeah.
Which the club, when I do the club 10 in the summer, the timers always like it because they can see me coming round the corner, so they even know who it is because but I don't have an orange bike. I've got my time trial bike's black with it's the giant Trinity with the orange kind of highlights rather than, I couldn't go for full orange, that would just be too much.
Oh, this guy has got full orange in our club.
So obviously, if anybody's watching this and wants to kind of like sponsor a kind of like 55-year-old, I'm okay in my age group. I'm sometimes I win a local race, but if anyone wants to sponsor me and give me an orange bike, I'm more than happy to ride it.
There you are. So you've heard it here. If you're up for it, Stephen is the man to go to.
I mean, to be fair, if you want to give me a purple bike, I'll ride it for free. I'm not that wedded to orange. If the new bike or the new kit is free, that's all good.
Okay, I think you've made your pitch clear there for everyone. That's great. And the last question, as we always come to, is the name of your first pet.
No, I'm not very petty. I'm not a very pet person, but I have had 2 pets in my life. Well, actually, I had 3. So the first pet that I had, it was 2 pets, were 2 goldfish that we won at the fair, and they were called Pinky and Perky. And the other pet that I've had in my life, so I can name all of my pets in my life, was a goldfish that my next door neighbour's son bought me for a joke. That was called Boris. But it's nothing to do with the man with shaggy hair who was our Prime Minister.
Right. Okay.
He was just called Boris. That was what he got named. So I've had 3 pets: Pinky, Perky, and Boris.
They're all goldfish, and
All
presumably
goldfish.
the last one was more sensible than the floppy-haired politician, no doubt.
Well,
Yeah,
he's very much in his bowl and went round in circles and
because
ate.
that's him. Yeah. So, well, you've certainly outdone me, because you probably remember from my chat that I'd only had one pet, and that was a goldfish, and I couldn't remember its name at all. I thought it might have been Goldie on the basis that I couldn't have been that inventive anyway. So. Well, that's been a really good chat today. There's some really good answers there, Stephen, and hope everyone enjoys watching it. And thanks for being with us today.
That's great. Thanks for having me, Del.
Yeah, cheers, Stephen.
Okay, bye.